My name is Hannah. I'm 26 years old, and until 1 month ago, my entire life was the quiet, predictable, and lonely world of the night shift at a tiny, fluorescent-lit convenience store off Route 58 in western Kentucky. Let me set the scene for you. It's the kind of place with buzzing lights that never quite work right, a rotating rack of microwavable burritos that have seen better days, and a back room that permanently smells like damp old cardboard, no matter how many cans of air freshener you empty into the void. I took that job because it was silent, it was simple, and I thought it was easy money while I finished my classes at the community college. It was supposed to be invisible work. But then I learned the paralyzing, skin-crawling feeling of being truly watched, studied by someone who operates under the smug assumption that you are completely, utterly unaware. It all began on a slow, dead Wednesday night, right around 12:45 in the morning. I was crouched down, stocking the refrigerated sodas when the front door chimed. I didn't even bother to look up. I just called out, "Evening," like I always do, expecting a grunt or the shuffle of feet toward the coffee pot. But this time, there was only silence. When I finally turned around, he was already there, standing way too close to my counter for someone who hadn't picked out a single item. He looked to be in his late 40s, with a wiry build and a shadow of grayish stubble. He wore a windbreaker zipped all the way up to his neck, which struck me as odd because it was miserably humid even with the AC on. He gave me the soft, familiar smile, as if we were old friends, and said, "You work this shift a lot." Now, notice that it wasn't a question. It was a statement. I replied, "Yeah," carefully, "most nights." He just nodded, slowly, like I had just confirmed a deeply held suspicion for him. "I figured," he said. I waited for him to grab a drink, a bag of chips, anything, but he didn't. Instead, he started walking the aisles with his hands clasped behind his back, like a man inspecting a museum exhibit. And every few seconds, his eyes would flick over to me. He wasn't even trying to be subtle about it. I had to pretend to be intensely focused on checking the lottery machine ticket roll just to avoid making eye contact. Finally, he came back to the counter and placed down a single, lonely pack of gum, but he kept his fingers resting on top of it. He looked right at me and asked, "It's Hannah, right?" My stomach dropped straight through the floor. I was not wearing a name tag. My throat went dry. Yeah, I managed. "How'd you know that?" He just shrugged, a small, casual movement. "I listen," he said. "You answer the phone the same way every night." And then he did it. He mimicked my greeting, my exact customer service tone. And something deep inside my core clenched tight, like a fist had grabbed hold of my spine. Before I could even form another thought, he added, "You seem like the type who pays attention to details. That's rare." Then he paid in cash with exact change and walked out into the night. I stood there, holding that pack of gum, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the refrigerated air. I tried desperately to shake it off. Let's be real, creepy customers are practically part of the job description for a night shift worker. But this was different. Something about him. The way he spoke, like we had an established, ongoing relationship, like this wasn't some random encounter, but a check-in. It stuck to me. It lingered. And over the next 2 weeks, he kept proving that feeling right. He'd show up at random, not every single night, which was almost worse, because it wasn't a pattern I could easily point to as proof. It was just often enough that whenever that front door chimed after midnight, my entire body would freeze, and I'd send up a silent prayer that it was anyone else. Sometimes he'd just wander the aisles for 20 minutes and leave without buying a thing. Other times he'd stand by the back freezers, pretending to read the nutritional labels on frozen pizzas, but I could see his eyes locked on my reflection in the dark glass of the doors. Once, when the store was completely empty, he said in a calm, conversational tone, "You shouldn't leave your hair down when you walk to your car. Someone could grab it just like that." He didn't say it like advice or a threat. He said it like a doctor giving a diagnosis. Another time, he pointed a finger at the little plastic dome of our security camera in the corner and said, "That one never records audio. Thought you knew that." I didn't know that. The terrifying truth was settling in. He was observing, he was learning, and he knew things about my environment and my routines that he absolutely should not have known. The situation escalated violently one night around 2 a.m. I had to take out the trash. We're supposed to do it in pairs, but my coworker had called out sick and I was completely alone. The dumpster is behind the building, practically in the edge of the woods. My heart was already pounding as I propped the heavy back door open with a milk crate, like we're trained to do. The second I turned the corner, bag in hand, I saw him. A dark shape, a person, standing perfectly still halfway between the dumpster and the tree line, facing me. The windbreaker was unmistakable. I dropped the trash bag. Glass bottles clattered and rolled across the cracked pavement. He didn't move a muscle. He just watched me. My voice was a barely audible whisper. "You can't be back here." Nothing. No reaction. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely grip my phone in my pocket. When I took one step backward toward the door, he took one small, deliberate step forward. He was matching me. In that moment, pure instinct took over. I spun around, bolted inside, and slammed the metal door so hard the frame shook. I didn't just lock it, I leaned my whole weight against it, gasping for air. I didn't stop shaking for an hour. I didn't even finish the trash run. I called my manager first thing the next morning. Her response was, "Just call the cops next time, Hannah. Some people are harmless, but weird." Harmless. The word echoed in my head. Yeah, sure, harmless. For the next few nights, he didn't come in. The silence was almost more unnerving. I started to cling to a fragile hope, almost convincing myself it was over, that I'd spooked him or he'd gotten bored. I was dangerously, catastrophically wrong. The real turning point, the moment that shattered any last illusion of safety, happened on a Monday. Around 1:30 a.m., the store was a tomb. I was mindlessly scrolling through the register's catalog system, bored out of my skull, when I caught a movement outside. A silver sedan with its headlights off, parked sideways across two parking spaces. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat, not moving. I argued with myself, thinking about calling the sheriff's office, but that voice of doubt kept winning. "You're being dramatic. As long as he doesn't come inside, what can you even report?" 10 minutes passed, then 20. The figure never moved. Finally, a trio of guys in their 20s, construction workers heading home from a late shift, came in, bringing a wave of normalcy with them. One of them, a tall guy in a Cincinnati Reds hoodie, nodded toward the lot and said, "Hey, you know there's someone in that car just staring this way?" I swallowed hard, playing dumb. "What car?" He pointed directly at it. "End of the lot, engines running." Then he added the detail that froze the blood in my veins. "Kinda looks like he's talking to someone in the back seat." The back seat? My brain short-circuited. He always came alone. To the store, to the dumpster, always alone. Unless he hadn't been. The guys saw the color drain from my face and got serious real fast. One asked, point blank, "Is he bothering you?" All I could say was, "He's been coming around a lot." My voice was quiet, strained, too much. All three of them exchanged a single unified look. The one in the hoodie said, "We'll hang around a minute." They took their coffees outside and stood by their big pickup truck, casual but unmistakably present, a wall of solidarity. The effect was instantaneous. The silver sedan's brake lights flashed, it reversed at a shocking speed and squealed out of the lot. No headlights, no visible license plate, just gone into the darkness. When I finally got home at 6 a.m. as the sun was coming up, I broke down and cried in my driveway. Not from sadness, but from that awful bone-deep adrenaline crash that follows when you realize how close you came to something very, very bad. My mind was a prison, replaying every single thing he'd ever said on a torturous loop. "You shouldn't leave your hair down." I listen. "That camera doesn't record audio. You work this shift a lot." He wasn't just a weirdo. He wasn't just curious. He was conducting reconnaissance. He was gathering intelligence. And I had been his subject. My name is Joel. I'm 28 years old, and my world exists between the hours of sunset and sunrise, working the overnight shift at a small, forgotten roadside lodge in the vast, silent expanse of rural Montana. This isn't a chain hotel. It's a two-story relic from the late 70s, complete with faded floral carpets that have seen decades of footprints, a lobby fireplace that's been permanently shut down due to insurance reasons, and a vending machine that eats dollar bills like it has a personal grudge against currency. I took this shift precisely because of the quiet. Most nights, the only soundtrack is the wind whistling against the vinyl siding, and the old ice machine in the hallway clunking and groaning like it's dying in slow motion. My routine was sacred. Sit in the cramped back office, drink terrible, bitter coffee, and watch reruns on the tiny TV perched atop a filing cabinet. I knew every single normal, harmless sound this old building made in its sleep. And that intimate knowledge is exactly what made that Tuesday night so utterly, bone-chillingly terrifying. It was sometime around 2:10 in the morning. I was in the back office, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when I heard it, the soft, distinct ching of the little bell on the front desk. Someone had pressed it. I set my phone down, pushed my chair back, and walked out to the lobby, fully expecting a late check-in or a guest locked out of their room. But the lobby was empty. Totally, completely still. The only movement was the tiny bell itself, swaying slightly on its spring, as if someone had just lifted their finger off of it. I scanned the room, then looked out through the glass doors into the darkness. Nothing. No headlights cutting through the night on the distant highway, no new cars in the lot. The wind wasn't strong enough to shake the door. And besides, this wasn't one of those cheap bells that rings from a vibration. You had to physically press it. I tried to shrug it off, convincing myself a guest might have leaned on the counter too hard before turning back. I waited a moment, my eyes searching the shadows, then returned to the office. 10 minutes later, the bell rang again. This time, the sound was sharper, more deliberate. I walked out faster, my senses on high alert. Again, nobody, but something was different. The guest key rack on the wall behind me. Room 204's key card was dangling crookedly from its hook. It hadn't been like that before. The cards always hang straight unless someone pulls one out and doesn't slot it back properly. A cold, prickling feeling started in my chest. I checked the computer. Room 204 was vacant, had been for days. Nobody should have touched that card. As I reached out to straighten it with my fingertips, I heard another sound. A soft clicking from the darkened hallway that led to the guest rooms. Click, pause, click, like someone tapping a fingernail slowly, rhythmically against the wall. I stood there, barely breathing, listening. Click, then silence. I took one step toward the hallway, and the air felt noticeably colder. The lights didn't reach all the way down, leaving the far end in a pool of dull shadow. "Hello?" I called out. My voice echoed back at me. Nothing. By 3 a.m., the bell rang for a third time, but this time it was accompanied by another sound, a faint, dry scrape. Not loud, just the subtle sound of something being dragged gently across the carpet. I stepped out of the office and my stomach plummeted. Lying face down on the carpet directly in front of the desk was one of our hotel brochures. I hadn't seen it there before. I am meticulous about keeping that rack neat. Slowly, I crouched down and picked it up. Someone had folded over one corner of the page, like they were keeping their place in a pamphlet about local hiking trails, in the middle of the night. "What the hell?" I whispered to the empty air. As I stood up, the hairs on my arms stood on end. The air in the lobby smelled different suddenly. Not like our sterile cleaning spray, but warm, organic, like someone had just breathed out heavily right where I was standing. That was it. I decided to check the cameras. I hurried back into the office, shut the door, and turned on the ancient security monitor. The feed flickered to life. On the live view, I could see the brochure on the floor, but when I switched to the playback for the last few minutes, my blood turned to ice. The brochure didn't fall. It didn't slip off the rack. It slid, slowly and deliberately, into the frame, as if someone had pushed it from under the counter. My hands were trembling as I rewound, zoomed in as much as the grainy quality would allow, and that's when I saw it. A hand. Not the whole thing, just the pale, thin fingertips of someone slipping up from the deep shadow beneath the front desk, nudging the edge of the brochure forward into the light. My breath stopped in my throat. Someone was under the desk, had been under the desk, hiding there long enough to adjust the key card, to ring the bell, to slide this brochure out into the open. I forced myself to look at the live feed of the empty lobby. The terror wasn't relief. It was worse. because if they weren't under the desk anymore, where were they now? Suddenly, a single gentle tap sounded on the office door right behind me. Just one. I spun around so fast my chair nearly toppled over. I didn't breathe, didn't speak, didn't move a muscle. Seconds stretched into an eternity. With a shaking hand, I slowly, quietly slid the deadbolt across, locking the door. I backed away, my eyes glued to the thin strip of light underneath it as I fumbled for the phone and dialed 911. My voice shook so badly the dispatcher had to ask me to repeat everything 3 times. As I waited, whispering into the receiver, I stared at the security monitors. For 2 agonizing minutes, nothing. Then, movement. The camera facing the front lobby showed a figure walking slowly past the desk, hood up, hands in pockets, face angled down. They moved with an eerie calm, like they weren't hiding anymore, like they owned the place. They walked to the front door, but didn't try to leave. They just stood there, looking out. Then they leaned forward, pressing their forehead against the glass, fogging it up with their breath. A second later, they turned abruptly and walked calmly, purposefully, out of the frame, directly toward the hallway that led to my office. "I hear footsteps," I whispered into the phone, my knuckles white. "They're coming down the hall." The dispatcher said the officers were close. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. There was no attempt to turn the handle. Instead, I heard something else, breathing. Slow, measured, deliberate breaths right against the crack at the bottom of the door. I covered my mouth, trying to silence my own panicked gasps. Then, the breathing stopped. Silence, followed by the soft, retreating sound of footsteps moving away. When I dared to look back at the monitor, the hallway was empty. The lobby was empty. The front doors were closed. For a fleeting second, I thought maybe they'd vanished. Then, blinding red and blue lights filled the parking lot, painting the lobby in pulsating color. The police had arrived. I stayed locked in that office until an officer pounded on the door and shouted it was clear. They searched the entire building, every guest room, including 204, every closet, every maintenance crawl space, even behind the vending machine where a kid got stuck once years ago. They found no one. Not a single footprint in the fresh snow outside. Not a smudge on the front door glass where a forehead had been pressed. Nothing. But when they checked under the front desk, the deputy shone his flashlight into the deep recess and found something tucked against the back panel. A crumpled yellowed guest receipt from 1997, a faded gum wrapper, and, most chillingly, an old tarnished metal hotel key from the era before electronic cards. The number stamped on it? Room 204. The same room whose keycard had been nudged on the rack, the room that was vacant. The officers bagged the items as curiosities, shrugged, and said whoever it was must have slipped out an exit before they arrived. But I watched the doors on the monitor the entire time. No one left. Not from the front, not the side, not the back. They were in here, and then they simply weren't. Like the building itself had absorbed them. I gave my 2 weeks' notice the very next morning. To this day, I sometimes hear that soft, innocent ching of the desk bell in my head, the one someone pressed just 3 feet away from where I was standing, completely unaware. And every time I remember room 204's key hanging open on that rack, like a silent, awful invitation, I am overcome with a sickening certainty. Whoever was inside that lobby with me wasn't roaming randomly. They were choosing, they were waiting, they were watching. And the only reason I'm here to tell you this story is because for some reason, they picked the wrong moment to finally come out from under that desk. If Joel's story of a presence that knew the lodge better than he did got under your skin, then you need to subscribe. Hitting that button is the best way to make sure you catch every single story, and it truly fuels this channel to delve deeper into the unexplained. Thanks for watching.